You're being controlled right now, not by chains, not by guns, but by pleasure. Aldous Huxley predicted this in 1932 and everyone laughed. They said Orwell was the prophet, Big Brother, surveillance, totalitarian control. But Huxley saw something far more terrifying. What if people didn't need to be oppressed because they learned to love their oppression? What if the prison had no walls because the prisoners refused to leave? Look around you. Infinite entertainment, endless distraction, a dopamine drip that never stops. You scroll, you consume, you forget, and you do it willingly. Pleasure as control. Huxley warned us about a world where truth would be drowned in a sea of irrelevance, where people would be so distracted by trivial things that they'd never question the important ones. That world isn't coming. It's already here. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly how his nightmare became our reality. The Prophecy. In 1932, Aldous Huxley published Brave New World. Most dismissed it as science fiction, a fantasy about test tube babies and Soma holidays. But Huxley wasn't writing fiction. He was writing a warning. The perfect dictatorship would have the appearance of a democracy, a prison without walls in which the prisoners would not dream of escaping. See, everyone focused on George Orwell. 1984, the boot stamping on the human face forever, governments watching your every move. And yes, surveillance exists, but Huxley understood something deeper. He knew that the most effective control isn't external, it's internal. You don't need to burn books if nobody wants to read them. You don't need to ban information if people are too distracted to seek it. Huxley saw that pleasure would be the ultimate weapon. Not pain, not fear, pleasure, the carrot, not the stick. And here's what's terrifying, he wrote this before television became mainstream, before the internet, before smartphones, before social media, before algorithms learned exactly what makes your brain light up. Prophecy became reality. He saw it all coming, but what exactly did he predict? Amusing ourselves. In 1985, media theorist Neil Postman wrote a book called Amusing Ourselves to Death. In it, he compared Orwell's vision to Huxley's, and his conclusion was devastating. What Orwell feared were those who would ban books. What Huxley feared was that there would be no reason to ban a book, for there would be no one who wanted to read one. Think about that. Orwell feared external oppression. Huxley feared we'd oppress ourselves through our own desires. Postman wrote this in 1985 when television dominated American life. He argued that TV had transformed every aspect of public discourse, politics, religion, education into entertainment. The medium itself changed the message. Complex ideas got reduced to sound bites. Nuance disappeared. Everything became show business. But here's what's chilling. Postman was writing about 3 channels of television. 3. Today you have infinite content, infinite scroll, infinite distraction. The problem isn't too little information, it's too much. You're drowning in content while starving for meaning. If this is making you question your own habits right now, hit like and subscribe to keep exploring these uncomfortable truths with me, because what comes next explains exactly how this controls your mind. Soma is here. In Brave New World, the government distributed a drug called Soma. It was the perfect substance, all the pleasure of intoxication with none of the hangover. Feeling sad? Take Soma. Feeling anxious? Take Soma. Feeling anything uncomfortable at all? Soma will fix it. A gram is better than a dam. The citizens of Huxley's world weren't forced to take it. They wanted to. They needed to. Because reality without Soma felt unbearable. Now look at your phone. Every notification triggers dopamine. Every like, every comment, every new video, a tiny hit of pleasure. Social media companies employ neuroscientists specifically to make their products more addictive. This isn't conspiracy. It's documented. Former Facebook executives have admitted it. The algorithm knows what you want before you do. Sean Parker, Facebook's founding president, said the platform was designed to exploit human psychological vulnerability. His words, not mine. But it goes beyond social media. Streaming services autoplay the next episode so you never have to make a choice. Dating apps gamify human connection. Soma is your phone. The drug Huxley imagined is in your pocket. And just like Soma, you take it willingly. But what does this constant pleasure actually cost you? The attention war. Here's a statistic that should terrify you. The average human attention span in 2000 was 12 seconds. By 2015, it had dropped to 8 seconds. That's less than a goldfish, and it keeps declining. 8 seconds, but this isn't about willpower or discipline. This is about warfare. The smartest engineers on the planet are paid billions of dollars to capture your attention. Every second you spend on their platform is money in their pocket. They call it the attention economy, and you are the product being sold. Tristan Harris, former Google design ethicist, describes it perfectly. There are 1,000 people on the other side of your screen whose job is to break down the self-regulation you have. 1,000 engineers versus your prefrontal cortex. It's not a fair fight. Your attention is the most valuable resource you own, and it's being harvested systematically, scientifically. Every app, every website, every piece of content is optimized to keep you engaged, not informed, not fulfilled, just engaged. Huxley predicted that people would be distracted from things that truly matter. He was right. But why does this matter for your freedom? Trivial Pursuit. Huxley wrote about a world where people would be given so much information that they'd be reduced to passivity and egoism, where they'd be overwhelmed with irrelevant data, where the truth would be drowned in a sea of triviality. People will come to love their oppression, to adore the technologies that undo their capacities to think. Think about what you know. You probably know what some celebrity wore to an awards show. You might know the details of some social media drama. You definitely know the latest viral video. But do you know how your local government works? Do you understand monetary policy? Do you know who represents you? Trivia kills truth. We live in an age of unprecedented access to information. Libraries of knowledge fit in our pockets. And yet, we've never been more uniformed about the things that actually affect our lives. The endless scroll fills your mind with content that feels important in the moment but evaporates instantly. You consume hours of information and retain almost nothing. Meanwhile, the decisions that shape your life happen in the background, unnoticed, unchallenged. This wasn't an accident, and the manipulation goes even deeper than distraction. Manufactured desire. In Brave New World, citizens were conditioned from birth to desire certain things. They were literally programmed to consume. Babies were given electric shocks when they reached for flowers, trained to hate nature, trained to need manufactured goods instead. Your desires are not your own. Now consider this. You're exposed to between 6,000 and 10,000 advertisements every single day, each one carefully designed to create desire, to make you feel incomplete, to sell you the solution to a problem you didn't know you had. Edward Bernays, the father of public relations, called it engineering consent. He learned from his uncle Sigmund Freud that human behavior could be manipulated through unconscious desires, and corporations have been refining these techniques for over a century. We are governed, our minds are molded, our tastes formed, our ideas suggested, largely by men we have never heard of. You think you want that new phone, that new car, that new lifestyle. But how much of that desire was planted? You cannot rebel against a system if you cannot see it. Huxley understood this. True control doesn't feel like control, it feels like choice. And there's another form of control that's even more invisible. Happiness prison. Here's the most disturbing element of Huxley's vision. The citizens of his world were happy, genuinely happy. They had pleasure on demand, work that felt meaningful, relationships without commitment, entertainment without end. They had everything except freedom. And they didn't want freedom because they didn't know they'd lost it. Most men and women will grow up to love their servitude and will never dream of revolution. This is the genius of modern control. It doesn't feel oppressive. It feels comfortable. Comfort is the trap. You have Netflix when you're bored, delivery apps when you're hungry, dating apps when you're lonely, mood stabilizers when you're sad. Every friction in life has been smoothed away. Every discomfort can be instantly medicated chemically or digitally. But what gets lost in this frictionless existence? Struggle builds character. Discomfort drives growth. Boredom sparks creativity. When you eliminate all suffering, you also eliminate meaning. You become what philosopher Byung-Chul Han calls the burnout society, exhausted not from oppression, but from optimization. Too comfortable to rebel, too distracted to notice. But there's something even more dangerous happening to your mind. Death of thought. Huxley's brother, Julian, was a renowned biologist. Aldous understood science, and he understood how conditioning works. In Brave New World, critical thinking was literally bred out of the population. The lower castes were oxygen-deprived as embryos to limit their intelligence. But you don't need to damage brains when you can simply keep them occupied. Distraction. Research shows that constant digital stimulation is rewiring our neural pathways. We're losing the capacity for deep reading, sustained attention, and complex thought. We skim instead of read. We react instead of reflect. We consume instead of create. Technology is a useful servant, but a dangerous master. The average person now reads at a fourth grade level. Not because they can't read better, but because they've lost the patience for complexity. A population that cannot think deeply cannot resist manipulation. Huxley warned that people would lose the ability to engage with difficult ideas, that they'd be conditioned to prefer simple, immediate pleasures over the delayed gratification of learning. Thinking is dying. Sound familiar? But even if you recognize this trap, there's a final mechanism that keeps you stuck. The perfect trap. Here's the ultimate trap in Huxley's vision and in our reality. The system works because you participate willingly. Nobody forces you to check your phone 150 times a day. Nobody makes you binge watch until 3 a.m. Nobody requires you to scroll through feeds of outrage and entertainment. You choose it every single time, and that's what makes it inescapable. You can't rebel against your own choices. You can't fight your own desires. Orwell's dystopia could be resisted. People could organize, could rebel, could overthrow. But Huxley's dystopia, there will be in the next generation, a pharmacological method of making people love their servitude. How do you fight against your own pleasure centers? How do you rebel against something that feels good? This is why Huxley's warning matters more than Orwell's, because Orwell's boot creates resistance. Huxley's soma creates compliance. The chains you cannot see are the chains you cannot break. The perfect control mechanism isn't one that suppresses resistance. It's one that makes resistance unthinkable. But here's what Huxley also understood. Awareness is the first step to freedom. Waking up. So what do? How do we escape a prison we've built for ourselves? Huxley offered a clue. In Brave New World Revisited, written in 1958, he observed that the forces pushing toward pleasure-based control were advancing faster than he'd predicted. But he also believed in human potential. There is only one corner of the universe you can be certain of improving, and that's your own self. The first step is seeing the system. Once you recognize the manipulation, it loses some of its power. Notice when you reach for your phone unconsciously. Notice when you're consuming without intention. Notice when pleasure is being weaponized against your own interests. 1. Reclaim your attention. 2. Tolerate discomfort. 3. Seek depth over distraction. 4. Question manufactured desires. 5. Choose conscious engagement. You cannot eliminate these systems, but you can develop awareness. You can create friction where there is none. You can choose boredom over entertainment, depth over distraction, meaning over pleasure. Wake up now. Huxley's warning wasn't about inevitable doom. It was a call to consciousness. The dystopia only wins if you remain asleep. And now, you can no longer claim ignorance. Aldous Huxley saw our future almost a century ago. He understood that the greatest threat to human freedom wouldn't come from tyrants or tanks, but from pleasure, distraction, and our own manufactured desires. Facts do not cease to exist because they are ignored. And here we are, drowning in entertainment, addicted to our devices, trading depth for distraction, choosing comfort over consciousness, every single day. But you've made it this far, you've seen behind the curtain, and that changes everything. The system works because it's invisible. Now it's not invisible to you anymore. What you do with this awareness is the only question that matters. You can go back to scrolling, back to the endless feed, back to the soma, or you can start paying attention to your attention. Start questioning your desires. Start choosing meaning over pleasure. Choice is yours. If you made it this far, comment "Soma rejected" to prove you're ready to stay awake. Welcome to the Psyche Project. If this opened your eyes, hit like and subscribe. Understanding yourself is the work of a lifetime. See you in the next video.